Three.
Hello, everyone. You are listening to the C Squared podcast with Corey and Curtis. Today, we have a super awesome guest for you, Mr. Ryan Williams, A&R from a little record label you might know, Metal Blade Records. We're super stoked to have him here. He is here to drop some knowledge bombs on y'all, so I hope you have something to take notes with. But before we get going, I just want to say thank you for joining us today, joining the chaos that is me and Curtis.
Right on. Glad to be here. How's it going?
Going good.
Hell yeah.
So, Ryan, first of all, can you kind of give like a little nutshell version of who you are, what you do kind of thing, like the nutshell version?
Sure. My name's Ryan Williams. I work A&R at Metal Blade, and I guess I got here kind of by a long, circuitous route through being in the Black Dahlia murder, I guess, really. I met those guys back in 2003 when they were working on their debut album, Unhallowed. I was actually working at the studio that they recorded at, so I met them that way. A few years after, they let go of their drummer and bass player, and they asked me to fill in for a tour in Japan, which I had like a month to prepare for, so I did that and got along really well. Ended up being in the band for 6 years. It was really great. I was like kind of the oldest guy in the band, so I was getting burnt out on driving a van all over the country, so I stepped down. But still very tight with them. I produced the next record they did after I left the band, called Everblack, and I continued to work with them in the studio, being an engineer on guitars, drums, all that kind of stuff. And in that transition time, I was recording other bands, I was being an engineer producer, and it wasn't going to the point where that could be my full-time job. And I ended up starting to work part-time at Metal Blade, doing social media and some kind of intern style work. And I eventually just, my role there increased and increased. I became more part of the team, and eventually I've, in the last few years, moved into being A&R there. And it's been really great. I love being at Metal Blade. It's an awesome company. We work with a lot of great bands. I still get to work with the Black Dahlia murder. And yeah, that's basically a really quick version of how I got to where I am.
Cool.
Awesome. And so your position at Metal Blade, do you want to just go into a little bit more detail of what it all entails, what all you do? There's a lot of mystery surrounding what an A&R actually is and what they're supposed to do. And so we'd love to demystify it a little bit for the listeners.
Sure. Yeah, I think, I mean, the main thing I guess that most people would think of is you're the guy that's scouting bands, looking for new bands and signing them. I also kind of, once a band does get signed, I'm also kind of one of the point people and lines of communication they have to the label. So just kind of onboarding them, getting them familiar with our, production processes, our marketing, being kind of a point of contact along with the product manager, really facilitating communication and trying to be a big picture thinker and really the go-between between the artist and the label. So those are kind of the big main two things, is signing bands and then kind of helping them with their career and developing their career with Metal Blade for the long term as well.
So I just kind of have like a quick follow-up on that. So you said that you're the main contact point of the band, but there's other contact points as well?
Sure. Normally our product managers would be kind of that other person who's another main point of contact, because the way I kind of look at it is, okay, I'm helping the band find the right studio, find the right producer, giving them feedback on their demos, deciding which songs might be good for singles. So I'm kind of taking them from their early demos until they're in the studio recording, mastering, and then from that point on, it kind of goes to the product managers, who then take that master recording, figure out the vinyl formats, figure out the marketing plan, figure out what's going to be in conjunction with any touring, how all of the rollout for the record's going to go. So I'm kind of on the front end of that in the production, and then the production manager kind of takes over until the record's actually on the shelves, the band's on tour, and it's in the fans' hands. So there's kind of a two-pronged attack there.
Cool. So another follow-up I just had on that, so is just kind of like, so if you're like the main contact point with the band,
Yeah.
Are you're kind of like the guy that the boss that kind of tells them like what should be going next for the marketing aspects too, or just for the artistic side?
Not really. That's more a team effort with the sales department, the marketing team, the product manager. We're all going to give them advice on marketing and rollout.
Okay.
But like I said, I'd be more on the demo side, on the, who should they go to the studio with? Should they record any extra songs for bonus material in Japan or Europe? Or, what should they be focusing on for endorsements? Can I connect them with any gear partners or partners that can help them with other things like maybe merch? Or can I connect them to a booking agent? Do they need to be touring somewhere where they don't have an agent yet? Can I connect them to people in that realm? So it's more on that side. And then, we have multiple people at Metal Blade with marketing degrees, and they're more expert than I am in that area. I try to know all that side too, because you have to kind of know everything these days, as you guys know.
Yep.
But yeah, more on the creative side, I would say, and connections, all that kind of stuff.
Cool. I'm just trying to think of what other follow-ups we have on that. I think that's it on that. So next up is, how do you find new bands?
A lot of different ways. Generally, I will say most of the stuff we sign will come from people we already know in the industry. So a manager or lawyer or someone that we already have a connection with will say, hey, I'm working with this band, or I've heard about this band. I think they'd be great for Metal Blade. Why don't you check them out? Yep. That's generally the way it happens. I also use some other tools. Like there's a website called Vibrate that's kind of like Chartmetric, if you've heard of that website. Basically just gathers analytics for bands, and you can just search for metal in Sweden, and it'll give you a list of all the metal bands in Sweden and rank them by popularity by looking at things like their YouTube followers, their Instagram followers, their Spotify monthly listeners. It'll kind of aggregate all of the data that I'm going to look at to judge where a band's at in their career, and it gives me a dashboard for that. So I guess this sounds like an advertisement for their site, but it doesn't really matter where you're getting all that information. This site just happens to aggregate it for me. But so you can find some stuff that way too, just by digging through analytics, just by looking at Instagram, by looking at, I always check out Decibel, Metal Injection, different websites just to see who's premiering stuff, what's going on. So I'm always got my ear to the ground trying to find new bands, just looking out. But I would say the majority of actual signings come from someone we already know suggesting something, and it comes in that way generally. But I will say too that I do look through our Instagram DMs, and it used to be that bands would send physical CDs to the label, and we have to go through and like listen to demos, and people still do that once in a while. And I will say that we're way behind on listening to them, because we generally are not openly accepting physical demos like that anymore. But on Instagram, people still feel like they can hit us up, and I do look through all of our DMs on Instagram, and I will listen to bands on there. And I haven't signed anything from that way yet, but I will say that it is a way to reach us, is through DMs, and just hitting us up on Twitter, for example, saying, hey, I'm in a new band, could you give this a listen? And I generally try to do that as much as possible.
Fair. Corey, did you have a follow-up before I ask mine?
I do, but I want to see what yours is first, because mine might actually be a follow-up to a different question that I have later. So
cool. So how do you kind of judge which of those bands you're actually going to listen to that hit you up randomly on Twitter or social media? Because I'm sure there's no way you listen to everything.
I mean, I really almost listen to anything that people send me. It's not the overwhelming amount you would think. Maybe after this, people hear it, it will be. But it's not as much as you would think. And I do try to give everything a listen, and at least give some feedback, say it sounds good, or things I think they could improve on. Generally, people that hit me up that way, their numbers are not really at the level where I can really take it back to the team and say, hey, this is something we should go after. But you never know. There is some cases like that. So,
Corey, you want to follow up?
No. Well, I have the next question. What are you specifically looking for when you are looking at new bands, be it somebody who's reached out to you or somebody who was recommended to you? What kind of benchmarks should people be working towards to really capture your interest?
It's hard. It's a lot of things. I'll say for analytics and things like numbers people can really shoot for, I'm looking at Instagram followers. I'm looking at Instagram engagement. So it can't just be like a lot of followers with zero engagement. There has to be engagement also. I'm looking at Spotify monthly listens. That's one of the big ones I look at is, are people listening to you on Spotify? Are they coming back? Are they consistently listening? I'm looking at YouTube. Is the band working YouTube? Do they have any videos? What do their videos look like? These days also, I mean, Facebook is still a thing. I look at those numbers. I think it's less and less important. Now it's more TikTok. And really Instagram, I think, is the place everyone has to be without a doubt. So I'm looking at all those numbers. But I'm also looking at like the professionalism of the recording. Does it sound like they are, because these days I think you can get a very professional recording without a huge budget. There's so many smaller producers and bedroom people doing just phenomenal work. So the recording has to be there, the band's aesthetic has to be there, and there has to be, I don't know, there also has to kind of be an X factor where you guys know how it is. There's a lot of bands out there right now, and there's a lot of really good bands out there right now, but you know, there has to be something that makes them stand out above the crowd. That like maybe it's a really phenomenal front person who's really engaging, or maybe it's the singer has a YouTube channel that does reaction videos, for example, or maybe they have a really great merch store already and they're really like kicking ass that way, or maybe they just have a phenomenal song that's like out of this world. So there has to be something above just good that's into the exceptional range that really has to really grab my attention, I would say.
And for the bands that do like cold reach out to you, what is something that really grabs your attention? Because like Curtis said at the beginning, a lot of our listeners are smaller, new bands that are just kind of finding their footing in the industry. What are some things that really spark like your interest of, oh, I kind of want to dig into this a little bit more before I say no, or before I say yes, or whatever?
Yeah, organic fans, a fan base that really loves the band, even if it's small. Me having heard about the band from other bands or other bands posting about the band is a really great sign. It shows they're active in the scene. Don't send me a link to download your record. Send me a link to stream your record, because I don't know you. I don't know if there's a virus in that download. I want to be able to click a button and hear your song and give you feedback right away. I don't want to have to go to WeTransfer and download something. Don't send me a Reverb Nation link. I don't know any professional bands that use Reverb Nation, but all the local bands who are kind of clueless still do. I don't know why. I don't know what that site's all about. Use Bandcamp. Send me a Bandcamp link. That's great. Yeah, I think those are kind of some main ones.
So now you were talking about Instagram engagement. Like, is there a certain percentage you're looking for on the engagement, or what? Yeah,
if you're like, let's say you have 100,000 followers and you get 10,000 likes, you know, so you're at a 10% engagement, that would be like phenomenal. 5% is good. 1% is bad, you know, just as a kind of rule of thumb. There's no, you know, every band is different. There's some bands are still kind of really physical based and their social medias are not that important. So it really is a case by case basis, but yeah, engagement numbers in the around 5 to 10% is really great. And Spotify monthly listeners too, again, to go back to that, of at least, you know, a few thousand is kind of a minimum I'm looking for.
So now, just to get back for 1 second, I know Metal Blade has signed bands that don't have a lot of engagement on certain platforms. I know they've also signed bands that don't have a ton of Spotify listeners. So how do you kind of judge?
Sure. If a band has, for example, a really strong Bandcamp presence, and I know that they're selling physically there, that could be one thing. If I know that they've maybe got their own store and they're selling something, I can reach out and find some numbers. That could be another reason. Or maybe it's just someone that we really believe in and we really think is special, or they have some other connection to Metal Blade. You know, there's always something like that too, where maybe Brian Slagle himself just really takes a liking to it and wants to take a chance on it. And, you know, that kind of stuff will make it through because, you know, the CEO believes in it. So there's a number of reasons that maybe the numbers don't look so good, but we think that there's potential here and there's something that we can build on. So it's not always a one size fits all, or, you know, there's always extenuating circumstances. So
Fair.
And so other than sending like downloads versus links to stream, what are
Yeah.
some other blunders that you see bands making when they do reach out to you that
Yeah.
maybe the ones listening to this should avoid?
Yeah, just send a concise email, send a concise message. If you send me some email with 5 paragraphs and all these links to different things, and it's just too much. We're a band. Here's what we're all about. This is where we're at in our career. Here's links to our music. Here's links to our socials. Perfect. I got all the information I need to kind of see where they're at. What else is something to avoid? I just want to see a touring history of the band too. That's usually very important. So if you have done dates, even if they're just local, include the dates you've done with. I don't need to see that you've opened a local band or you've opened a local show that, or you were the local band on a big band show. Like, oh, we played with X, Y, and Z. Like, I want to see more that you've gone out and tried to do some regional touring. And just be cool. Just be easy to talk with. Don't overly complicate it. It's hard to say, but just concise. Give me the information, shoot me links, streaming links instead of downloads, and link it to your social media. And that's really it. And if you have like 50 Instagram followers and 10 monthly listeners on Spotify, you're not ready to reach out to a label yet.
Ooh, can you kind of go over that for a minute? Because that's a common misconception, is that the label is going to make the band versus the band being ready. Can you go over that for a bit?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I hear that a lot, like bands that think, well, we have this record, we haven't done anything yet, we haven't toured, we haven't built a local fan base, we have no organic growth, but if we signed a Metal Blade, then surely we'll blow up because you have 1 million subscribers on YouTube, you guys have a huge Instagram page. If you just put us on those pages, surely 1 million people will see us and we'll blow up. That's not how it works. The band has to have some kind of growth on their own that we can work with. And I think Tracy even mentioned this when she was talking to you guys, that there has to be something there that we can build on top of. To start anything from zero is really hard, even for the biggest label, even throwing all the money, advertising money, putting you everywhere. It's only going to do so much without that organic fan base to start with. So start playing local shows, start being active in your local scene. Get other bands to tweet and Instagram about you, get connected with booking agents in your local area, your local promoters. I mean, that's the biggest stuff you can do to kind of get off the ground. And then if you start to get the ball rolling and I can see that, oh, people do like your band organically, then I can say, well, now if I see those people like it, I can get these people to like it. But starting at absolute zero is really tough.
And I know that one of your guys' focuses is like social media and whatnot. You said earlier you really look at Instagram and things like that. Yeah. What are some ways that bands can more effectively utilize social media to build that organic following that you're looking for?
Just be active on there. I see a lot of bands that maybe post only once or twice a month. That's not enough. I mean, if you're trying to build a band, you should be pretty much posting every day. This is something really simple I see a lot of bands miss. Put the actual individual members' Instagram profiles links in your bio so people can follow the individual members, because the band is cool, but people also want to follow like your singer or your guitar player. Maybe he's got a lot of really cool stuff going on. So you want people to be able to easily follow them. Take advantage of the new things they're rolling out. Instagram is always trying to copy whatever else is going on, whether it's stories with Snapchat, whether it's Reels trying to be like TikTok. And what they do is when those new features roll out, they push those, the algorithm pushes those harder than they do a regular Instagram post. So always be looking at what's the new thing Instagram is using. Is it Reels right now? I got to figure out how to make a Reel. It's not that hard. People think that and listen, I don't love social media as a person, but this is how you're going to reach your fans. So you have no excuse to be like, oh, I don't like that. I think stories are dumb. I think Reels are dumb. It doesn't matter what you think. That's how you get to people right now. And if you want to be a serious professional band, you got to learn these methods. They're free. They're absolutely free. There's nothing, you can have one guy in the band that takes 20 minutes out of his day to figure out how to post a cool reel, or that figures out how to use TikTok. There's not a lot of bands on TikTok right now. So there's a big void there, and a big potential first mover advantage for people that do take advantage. And they think like, oh, well, I have to do something that's not me. I have to like do some dumb dance, or I have to like, sell out or do something I think is cringe to be on there. No, you don't. You could do a vocal playthrough. And I've seen with bands, one of the new signings, we have Entheos. Cheney does kind of vocal playthroughs. She's got over 1 million views on one of her vocal playthroughs on TikTok, and it's not doing anything that's outside of her comfort zone. It's her singing one of her songs, and that just, for whatever reason, got in the For You page or gotten people's recommended, and it blew up. So take advantage of the stuff that's out there for free, and don't be afraid of it, and really learn it, even if it's just got to be one guy in the band's job to be like that guy. Make it happen.
So I got a bit of a follow-up that kind of pertains to what you're talking about. So one common misconception that many bands have is that once they get signed to a label, the label is then going to take over all their social media for them. But I know that's not true. Can you kind of go over that, please?
Sure. We have a person at Metal Blade, Rick, who is our social media manager right now, and he will absolutely help our bands. And if, let's say, they're on tour, they don't have internet access, whatever, they need help posting, we will help them. We will make it happen. But the band should be in the driver's seat mainly, because that's going to be the most authentic and real thing for the fans. So, like, for example, Black Dahlia Murder, if they wanted, we could do their social media if they wanted. We would absolutely do it. We've offered even because we know how busy they are, and that's like one of our biggest bands. But Trevor likes to do it because he likes to be in contact with the fans. He likes to see the comments. He likes to make sure all the posts are in the voice of the band. So while I don't want to say like, oh, well, we wouldn't help, we wouldn't do your socials if we needed to. I mean, we've absolutely done things and posted for people, and especially things like rollout, help for just make a plan for when we're going to post what and all that kind of stuff. But there's no replacement for the actual members of the band being engaged with their fan base, and it being in their voice and authentic to who they are and what they would actually do and say. So yeah, you should always be in the driver's seat if possible.
So what would be, like, for bands that don't like to do social media, don't really know what they're doing, which is a lot of them, what would be your advice on how to get going without looking like an idiot?
Just look at what other bands are doing that you respect and look up to. See how much they're posting, see, a consistent aesthetic between your different pages, and your profiles is cool. Let's say your album is green, and all the members in your band have a green profile, and you have green all over your stuff, and it all kind of works together. Do stuff like that. Just consistency and just working it. Just look at what, I mean, I'm sure you can find one band that you think their profiles are cool. Even if you're like the dirtiest underground black metal that's like, not into social media, there's some other band that's doing something artsy enough or creative enough to where you would probably think it's cool, and you can get ideas from them. Just look around, see what works, and try things. Don't be afraid to try things. Sometimes you'll come up with, like I find this on Twitter all the time, I'll come up with some marketing angle or some kind of way to word something and push a band that I think is really clever. It doesn't really do anything. But when I just say something offhanded, like just a comment or a joke or a meme, sometimes those things take off way more than the thing you planned out and thought about for 2 hours what you were going to do. So also don't overthink it. Don't get in your own way. Just start actively engaging and see what works. And once you find something that works, do more of that. And yeah.
So what do you think are the don'ts that bands should not do on social media, since we're on the topic?
I find just getting people to do it is harder than telling people that they're doing it wrong. So I almost don't want to like say, don't do this, don't do that.
Fair.
I don't know. I don't see a lot of stuff where I'm like, oh God, they shouldn't have done that. I mean, I guess you could say maybe like getting super political, or, we've had bands where the personal members say something and then it kind of like makes blowback for the band. So, I get it. People want to speak their mind, but you also maybe don't want to go down some of those roads and make controversy. But then again, maybe that's something that gets you some press or gets you some eyeballs. So it's different for everyone. I don't know. I just think work it. I think that's the biggest thing. Don't not work it. That's what I would say
Sure.
not to do.
Actually, I have a quick question, but just about the political thing. Like you said, sometimes it'll get blowback. Does that ever help get sales of the albums when that happens, or is it negative completely? Just out of curiosity.
I don't know. I mean, they say like no press is bad press. I don't have anything directly linked to sales where I can say like, oh, this band did a political post and then sold a bunch or then didn't sell anything. I don't have anything like that. But yeah, I don't know. I just think generally people are into music, and listen, there's bands that are very political and that's what they want to talk about, and they're involved in certain issues, and I'm all for that. That's great. But I think in general, people come to music as kind of an escape from all that stuff. And like, that's why you kind of go to a show, is like to forget about your job and like have fun for a few hours. And I think that's generally how people view music, but it's different for everyone. And I would never tell anybody not to stay true to themselves. And if they're really involved in a cause, then go for it. But yeah, it's hard to say any hard rules that apply to everyone in every situation.
Cool. Corey, did you have a follow-up on that?
I have a question, but it is off topic. It's on a different topic. So if you have another follow-up on social media, go for it. Okay, cool. So in your points of things that you look for bands, you mentioned having their aesthetic on point.
Yeah.
What are the kind of things that you look for? Because I know that's another area where people struggle, is developing like a clear image of who they are. So what are some recommendations on developing that authentic but distinctive image?
Man, that's tough. I wish I had like an easy answer for that. Some bands, it could be as easy as all of our stuff is black and white. That's what we are. We're the black and white band. Maybe you have someone in your band who's really like into streetwear or fashion or something like that. Maybe that's a good angle for you. I don't know. It's like you kind of almost, that has to be very individual for each band, and you have to know kind of the scene you're involved in. Like maybe you're an old school death metal band and all of your stuff is super sloppy and it's one of those logos that you can't read, and maybe that's what's really popular for your scene. So you have to just kind of know what's going on and what's cool in your scene and what's not, and what people are drawn towards. So again, look at other bands, see what they're doing, and try to copy them without, ripping them off. And yeah, just look around, just try to hone it as you go. I don't think there's not anything that you can't evolve with time too. So just start trying things. A lot of times I think it's helpful to have maybe either a photographer or a friend that's a photographer, so you can maybe get some more professional looking shots. Live shots are always really good too, and make sure you always tag the live photographer, give them a shout.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just look around. I don't know. It's hard to give blanket advice for everybody.
And would you ever recommend that somebody do something kind of off the wall that isn't necessarily like fitting with their scene? Like I would almost be intrigued by a black metal band that wore all lime green suits or just something weird like that. Like
yeah,
I'd be like, wait a minute. I have to figure out what these guys are about.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I love weird stuff. I think that like that music and art is about being creative and subverting expectations. So yeah, if you want to be a crazy, death metal band and wear like a nice suit or, have some other thing, and if that's genuine to you, I'd say go for it. Like, as long as you're doing it out of it being genuine and being yourself and you're being authentic, even if it totally, not to keep bringing it back to Black Dahlia Murder, but for example, like, those guys would go over and play with like these really serious metal bands in Europe, and they'd all be wearing like basketball shorts on stage. And the real metal bands be like, well, you can't wear basketball shorts on stage. You're a metal band. It's like, that's just who they were. That was where the scene they came out of. And that was just genuine to them. And they weren't trying to fit in with the other bands that they were playing with. So yeah, as long as it's genuine and as long as you're being true to yourself, I say go for it. Be weird, be different. There's a million bands all trying to have the same aesthetic, and do the same kind of stuff. And like I said, you have to kind of figure out a way sonically and aesthetically to stick out and to be different. And so, sure, I'm all about that kind of stuff.
So, Corey, did you have a follow-up on that before I go on to the next one?
Oh, go for it.
Cool. Are you willing to talk about merchandise and stuff, Ryan, or is that kind of out of your wheelhouse?
It's not completely in my wheelhouse, but I'm fine with talking about it. Sure, if you have a question.
Cool. Well, it was just like a mild question on it, which is basically, what kind of merchandise do you find it does the best for bands?
I mean, it's t-shirts, right? I mean, it's
Fair.
It's just the thing that people want. I think long sleeves are really cool also. Obviously vinyl is now really important. It's not quite a merch item or a music item, but also think of individual things you can do that are different. Maybe you're a thrash band and you know that all your fans love to drink beer, so you make a beer koozie. Like, just simple stuff like that will appeal to your fan base, I think is good. Yeah, get creative though, try different things, see what you can get made. But there's nothing, a great t-shirt design will probably go further than anything else you can think of.
Fair.
I keep telling people to do mugs. What are your thoughts on mugs?
Yeah, sure. Mugs, why not? If you can get them and it's got your logo on it and people want them, why not? Yeah, sure, absolutely.
So, off the merch question again, I wanted to go back to A&R super quickly if we could, unless Corey had something to follow up on that.
Nope, I am done talking about mugs.
Cool. So can you kind of go over what will kind of get you a band blacklisted if they contact you, if there is anything?
Being super demanding. Like, I've run into a few bands in the past that are like really entitled, like I got recommended to you by this person and now you're not signing my band, and now you're like, they're mad at you or something, or it's just entitlement. And yeah, that's a big red flag. Obviously there's, stuff like, if there was like some kind of racism in the past, or
yep,
allegations of, all that kind of stuff is not really the best thing you want on your permanent record.
Nope.
But yeah, I think the main one is just being entitled and just thinking that someone owes you something, regardless of who you know or how big or small you think your band is. No one likes to hear from someone that's really entitled or thinks they deserve more than they should, or just
Sure.
People, just it's a hard business for everybody. There's a lot of bands, there's a lot of competition, and yeah, you work hard, don't be entitled, I guess would be the thing.
So how many times is too much to follow up with you? Like, if a band's trying to get in touch with you, what's too many times to reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, generally, if a band is cool and they reach out and I'm like, well, you guys I like what you're doing, but you're not quite there yet, I have no problem with follow-ups. I correspond with a lot of bands that are in that situation, that are just maybe like not quite there, but they're close, or they have a lot of good things going for them. So like, yeah, once every few months, if you want to shoot me an update, and this happens with a lot of bands where I'm talking to them, I think what they have is going, but they're not quite at the level where Metal Blade's ready to sign them. I'm happy to get updates like, hey, we got this premiere, or hey, we got this tour booked, or hey, look at this new video we got. Hey, do you want to hear this new mix that we have of our new record? Can you give us any feedback? I'm happy to field that stuff, and every month or every 2 months, every 6 months, something like that. If you want to follow up and say, hey, anything changed at the Blade? I just want to give you an update of where we are. I'm happy to field that stuff. If it's every week or every day, or that's obviously too much. But
yeah, cool. I have one final question for you. There's apparently one more after mine, actually. But my final question to you is kind of like, so, like, is it easier for a band to get signed with Metal Blade if they have like a manager or even if they've had previous PR or anything like that? Or do you just don't really care if they've done it all themselves? Is there an advantage to either of those?
Well, generally, I'm kind of dealing with more the smaller bands. We have, Brian Slagle, obviously, when there's a band like Amon Amarth or Killswitch Engage or something on that level. Like he's dealing with more of them. And they obviously have managers and all that stuff in place already. But for the bands that I'm looking at, which is kind of more, smaller bands, baby bands, developing bands, if they have a manager, that's great. If they don't have a manager and they really have their stuff together, that's also great. I don't really care if they've worked with PR before. That's really cool. It shows me that they're at least trying. I like that, but they don't have to have that experience either. So I would say no. It really just depends on if someone in the band is actively doing that job. Because usually when there's not an official manager, someone in the band is kind of the business guy. And if that business guy knows his stuff and is basically serving as the manager, that's perfectly acceptable. And I think a lot of bands, kind of like how you mentioned with, they think they're going to get signed and then blow up. They think they need a manager to blow up too. And maybe they don't need a manager yet. Maybe giving away 20% of your income doesn't make sense for you yet. You're not at the level where it's that much work yet. And ideally you want a manager to come to you. You don't want to be looking for managers. So it all depends again, but I'm totally cool with just the band as they are, and they don't have to have anyone else involved. But if they do, that's great too. That shows that they're maybe at a certain point in their career.
And
Fair.
I actually have questions. So the first one is on what we were just talking about. Is it important for a band or helpful for a band to already have a booking agent in the works? Because I mean, we hear it from bands where it's, oh, the label told me they wouldn't sign me unless I had a booking agent, but then the booking agent told me they wouldn't sign me unless I had a label, and then this vicious cycle.
Yeah.
So is it helpful for a band to have a booking agent already, or can you look past that and sign one that doesn't have one?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely like to see that they have a booking agent and then they're active touring. That's great. That's definitely a bonus. But if they don't, that's also fine. But I would want to see that they, at least on their own, have been trying to book their own local shows. They've been trying to book regional stuff. They're not kind of waiting for that to play shows. It's not necessary though. I would never say like, oh, you guys don't have an agent yet, I can't sign you. If everything else was in place, I could probably connect them, hopefully with someone that would work for them. So I've heard that before too, like, oh, we approached this booking agent, but they don't want anything to do with us until we're signed, or, I've heard that. So I would say just, again, network with people in your local scene, talk to other bands. Maybe you can get connected through an agent that way. And if not, just do stuff on your own and learn about it. And something will come along if you work at it long enough.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I do want to point out, like you kind of already said this, but to my understanding, it's like if the numbers are there, everything else will fall in place, right?
Yeah, what do you mean, like for their
socials, their streaming, their any show attendance, that type of thing, then it'll all fall in place as long as the band is doing the things to pump up.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's a band that's got traction and all those numbers are there, you're going to start getting people coming to you and asking. So absolutely. And that's another reason to keep working all that stuff, because a potential manager or booking agent sees all these numbers and sees that you guys are playing shows and sees that people are showing up at your shows. You have a certain amount of monthly listeners. It's going to become more and more attractive for them to reach out to you and try to work with you. So yeah, for sure.
Fair enough. Corey, do you got any more follow-up questions?
No more follow-up questions. Just the last one I wanted to ask. Do you have any more follow-up?
I'm
All
good.
right. The most important question of the entire interview. What is your favorite dinosaur?
Man, that's a tough one. I haven't probably thought about that since I was like 8 years old.
See, it's heartbreaking that when we reach adulthood, nobody ever asks what our favorite dinosaur is. It's just like people stop caring. So
yeah. I don't know. I always liked the Brontosaurus, but didn't they change that? Like they had the wrong head on it or something, and now it's like the something-osaurus. I don't know. I always like the really huge ones, I guess, or like maybe a megalodon, like a shark. That'd be a cool dinosaur.
Big ass shark.
Pterodactyl, I guess. I mean, you can't really. A huge flying lizard is like pretty terrifying. So pterodactyl is pretty cool too.
Yeah, they are pretty. I haven't heard pterodactyl yet, so that is pretty cool.
Okay.
Cool. So, Ryan, is there anything final you would like to say before we end off?
No. Just thank you guys for the time, and yeah, I'm just happy to connect with any bands. maybe I'll regret saying that now if all a bunch of
You're just going to get a deluge in your inbox.
yeah, but no, I'm really generally happy to talk to bands and give advice, and yeah, just work hard. You know, don't expect things. Nose to the grindstone, and yeah, just keep on going, stay metal. And I think now that we're coming out of this pandemic, hopefully, and shows are happening, like just get out there. People are really hungry. I've been to a couple shows, Psycho Las Vegas and Black Dahlia Murder Rivers of Nile in LA here. And people are just really hungry to get out there. So obviously be safe, do all the stuff you feel comfortable with. But if you can get out there and start connecting with people in real life again, in addition to all the social media stuff, you know, go for it. And I think people are really ready to support bands. And so yeah, I'll see you at a show, hopefully.
Cool. All right, with that, party on, Corey.
Party on, guys.